Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well on this Friday. It seems like it's been a while, and it has. I've been away, and I've been home, and I've been creating, and it's just been crazy busy around here. So this is the little teeny tiny album we're gonna make with the collection from Simple Stories. And no, I didn't just use a 6x6. Fun on the Farm by Echo Park. But before I show you the inside of that, I've got something for you that I got just after I got home, and I need to sing its praises because I think it's pretty cool. So I think I'm not even going to be able to put it all in my shot. This is the new all-in-one paper trimmer that Tammy's got in the store, and it does all kinds of crazy things. I haven't even figured out what all these do. They're punches like for envelopes and banners, and side tabs is what it says. Down here along the bottom, I'm going to have to turn it around so you guys can see it. It's got these cool little spots that you put these pegs, and then you can make the most fabulous ribbons. And I actually use this on a project that I'm working on, and I love it. Hello, Miss Marguerite. Hello, Amanda and Alice. Oh, okay, Marguerite, don't get in trouble because you're listening from work. So I just needed to sing the praises of this because I was using it as I was cutting the papers for this project. And you know what? It does a really, for a small cutter is how I'm going to say this. I think I'm going to put it this way. For a small cutter, I am amazed with how well it cuts. Nice sharp blade. I've got wounds to prove it that have now healed. So be very careful when you flip this up because there's the blade and it's super, super sharp. And it's like it's a 2-in-1. It's a cutter. But if you flip this over, you now have a scoreboard. What a great thing to take to retreats. It's an all-in-one. Like you can make your bows. Oh, and it's got a stamping platform. So you put I haven't even tried the stamping platform yet. So it's just a set of magnets that holds it in place. So you adhere your stamp to this side, paper here, and voila. So I'm going to be trying that because you guys all know I do love to stamp. And hello, Miss Tina. I think I've got everything right there. So that is just, I've got to sing its praises. I'm very, very, very impressed with it. And it takes a lot for a paper trimmer to impress me. The one little thing I saw about it, that's some of my glue, is that you really got to push this down in so it's flat. But once you got that figured out, you're good to roll. And yeah, it's an amazing all-in-one tool. So check it out. Tammy's got them in the shop. And oh, it even comes with its own little scoring tool. And then on the back, there's a couple of magnets. I forgot to tell you about the magnets to hold things down. And it's also got the envelope chart that you need when you're making your envelope type items. As a matter of fact, I am going to move these to the other side because look at, they even adhere to the front of the board. So when you're cutting those tiny cuts, hold your paper in place with these and it'll make for that tiny cut. And it has an extendable arm. I should mention that too. And like I say, I know it's hard to see because it takes up a lot of space. So that is one of the things that I'm really, really excited about and happy that I got it. The next thing I want to talk about, that was the album going on the floor. Oops. You don't want to send albums on the floor. That's not how you want to start your live. Okay, I didn't wreck it. Good thing. I'm going to set it up here so I don't do that again. We're going to also be using a couple of more things that Tammy's got in the store. Now, she has this punch. This is that corner rounder punch. Mine is blue. The new one is all white. It's from We Are Memory Keeper. And It's the corner rounder, and I'm using the 7mm in today's project. I love this little punch. It's awesome. I've had zero problems with it, and I have had this one for quite some time now. It's actually, yeah, I bet I've had this for about 2 years now, and it's still holding up, and I use it all the time. So we're going to be using that punch. We are going to be using this fabulous photo corner maker, and I'm just going to show you something about it because I learned this as I was experimenting for this album, and you're going to see in a minute. So when you put your paper in and you're going to punch out the corner for the photo, push and then give it another little push, because you want it to, look at it, embosses, it creases the lines for you. So all you have to do is fold over on the lines and give it a good burnish with the burnishing tool. And look at, you've got yourself a corner for your photos. And I've used some of these corners in the album, which I'm going to get into here in just short order. I just had to show you all this exciting stuff because this is fabulous. So put that on your wish list, or tell somebody that cares about you that yes, they definitely need to put this in your possession. And then we are going to be using today, and I got to get the information from the product, the product backing. So this one is a little bit older packaging, but it's the straight slot punch from Dress My Craft. These two are from We Are Memory Keepers. And this one makes the coolest. And again, this is for and it holds most of the stuff in the back here. For when you're want to put your photos in your albums for a photo mat, voila, or voila, whichever way you like it best. So I've used this punch in my album too today. All right, so that was me quickly going through some of the things we're going to use today. I'm going to set these aside because other than this and maybe this, I shouldn't need, as I'm dropping stuff everywhere. What else is new in my world? Now, I'm going to tell you what I used in this album. There are those. If you saw the floor after I'm done creating, you'd go, really? Yes, I make a terrible mess. So the products I used in this from the Fun on the Farm collection is I used the 12 by 12 collection kit, which I got single sheets, so I don't have any paperwork to show you. And that comes with a sticker sheet. So you get 12 sheets of 12 by 12 paper plus the sticker sheet. I had the 6 by 6 paper pad, and I had the ephemera. And really what I've got left is I've got 2 full sheets of the solids. So the coordinating solids. Oh yes, I got the coordinating solids too. 2 full sheets of the solids, and I think 1 6 by 6 and 1 12 by 12, and the rest are pieces. So I will be using them for something else. I just don't know quite what yet. So that's some of the stuff. The other thing I should tell you is I use 10 sheets of 12 by 12 black artisan cardstock. And if you look at Scrapbookers, or if you go over to my Facebook group, All Things Paper by Bonnie, you'll find the cutting guide for this project. So I'm going to take this and set it up here so I can keep it close to me, and we're going to get started. So when I saw this paper, all I could think of is, if you ever took your child to the petting zoo or the petting farm, or like I used to take my preschoolers, so I was a preschool teacher, put that in there. We used to go about once a year to a farm, and we get to see all the animals, and we get to feed the chickens and get to touch the horses. It was just an amazing time for kids that didn't really get that in their day-to-day life. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to make a little album for those pictures? So there's my thought process where I was headed with this. And I don't usually go for this cutesy stuff. Like, yeah, I like it, but it's not 100% me. But this one, I fell in love with. So I made a little scene on the front instead of using a cut apart or something like this. I made this little scene. These 4 pieces all came from the sticker sheet, and I just backed them on some black artisan. This came out of the ephemera, and I did the same to it. And then what I did is I took a 6x6 sheet of the cardstock. I sort of cut it on a little slope going one way. And then I took a green piece, I believe it was a 6x6 too, and I kind of just freehanded my cut. And then I just laid them down. So the bottom one is sitting up about 1 inch. So that's kind of the way I save the little paper. And I just created myself a little scene. So that's sort of the front of this album described. You know, Jen, I love that corner. I love, love, love that photo corner. And I'll show you what I did with it. But you'll come up with some great ideas too. So this album measures 5.5 by 7, and it's got 1.75 inch spine. You could expand that to 2 inches if you wanted to, because if you look this way, I'm pretty chunky, you know, but there'll still be room for pictures in it. So on the inside front cover and the inside back cover, I just did a pocket, keeping it simple, trying not to bulk it up anymore. And then I did some photo mats, and look at, you use the punch, you use the slot punch, and you don't need to do anything else with them. It's beautiful. And this was a sticker. These are stickers. And that is the front inside cover. Now, I got started and I went, I need to make some barn doors. I don't know why. I just went, I need to make some barn doors. And so I thought for a while, and this is what I came up with. I'm sure there's a zillion other ideas out there that would be just as good, but this is what I created. So I created 2 little holders for what keeps the barn door closed. There's no magnets on this page, well, on the front of this page. So this is what keeps them closed, and it just slides in and it slides across, and it holds everything together when the doors are closed. And then when you want to open them up, it opens up like this. And these are from the sticker sheet, and I just put some artisan behind them. This is from the sticker sheet. I did have this punch in my stash. It's this one. It's a really old Echo Park, not Echo Park, EK Success punch. And I thought that it looked quite nice. It sort of got that tear or that binder looking finish on it. This is popped up. And I thought, the family that farms together stays together. I thought that was a rather cute little saying. And then you think we're done, but we're not. So this is going to flip up because there's a magnet that's holding this closed. And I tried my hand at one of these pop-up elements. And you guys that know me know that I'm kind of a less is more. And then it's there. So there's room for a picture up here. And I actually made sure that I actually have a piece of 1-inch paper over top of what created this mechanism. And I didn't glue it completely down so you can stick the picture in underneath. And what else do I want to tell you? Oh, yes, I used the slot punch again. And so all you got to do when you're doing the slot punch in this case is just remember when you're gluing it down, don't put any glue over the slots so that your picture will go in. So that is the inside of the front of page 1. And I just thought it was kind of cute and it was different and it's easy peasy to do. You know me, I'm easy peasy all the way. So it closes, and like I say, there was a magnet. On the back of page 1 and the front of page 2, I kind of did some, they're exactly the same. And here's where I use those corner punch to make the photo corners. And you could actually take these pictures out if you wanted to and put other pictures in there. I like this, think outside, no box required. We really need a dose of that every once in a while. And then you open it up, and again, I used the slot on these photo mats, and I will give you these measurements. So this one is 4 1/4 by 5 1/4. This one here is 4 1/4, and it's probably 3 1/4. So I didn't give those measurements in the cutting guide because, of course, you're going to decorate it probably different. And then if we go the other way, there's the other side of it. So it's kind of like a little layout. And those of you that know me well are going, wow, she did a layout. Yeah, I'm not a 12 by 12 layout person. So it closes, and there's a magnet. Actually, there are 2 magnets. I have a whole whack of small magnets, and I went, I need to use some of these up. So I decided to put a magnet at the top and the bottom. So there's one about, I don't know, I got to find it here. One about there, and that's what's holding this all closed. And I actually really like how that secured these 2 pages. And then we turn to the back of page 2, and there's this pocket with more photo mats in it. I just used a piece of solid paper here because I thought there was a lot going on. And Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. Yes, he did. And these are from the sticker sheet, and this is from the ephemera package. And then it opens, and again, just more real estate. And you can stick your picture in behind. You'd have to cut down a 4 by 6, but you could stick them in behind the little tabs. And there is no magnet holding this shut. And again, I used that little decorative punch, border punch for the edging. And it also, when you use this little decorative punch, it lets you use the 6 by 6 paper because, of course, it's 6 1/2, right? So you need something to put along the top or the bottom. Close that. And then we're on to the front of page 3, Life is Better on the Farm. And again, I used the corners. This one will not come out because I was finding it was catching over here on the photo mats. And I decided I would make that one permanent. So it opens like so and like so. It says, welcome to the farm. And it's held by a magnet. So there is a magnet here. And then the other side of it opens this way and this way. So these are stickers. This is from the ephemera. This is from the ephemera. And of course, again, it allows you to slide. You know me, I never really close those up. Let's use the other side of this. So you can slide your picture in there. It have to be cut down a little bit, but we know that. And then on the back of page 3, so it's only got 3 pages in it. It's got another magnet. So the magnet is here and then on the base page. So this is, of course, a cut apart. Stickers, another sticker, Old MacDonald had a farm. And then this little milk can, you can put your picture in behind it. Okay, and then on the back, this came from the sticker sheet. And we have 2 more photo mats in the pocket. So it's just a nice little album. It won't take us very long. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Tina. It won't take us long to construct it. But I just went, this is adorable paper. And you know what? Sometimes some of these cutesy papers, we forget what we can do with them. And, you know, some of us have had kids. Some of us have grandbabies. I am sure that if we're in either one of those 2 categories, we've taken kids to a petting zoo or we've taken them to a farm. What a great place to put pictures. What if you live on a farm? Wouldn't that be a cool? And then I didn't show the outside. So it's memories on the farm, and then the back, I just left plain. And I did use, just for something different, you all know I love my sepia, but I did use, I used in the night sky a Carvolink to ink most of the edges. And then I use the library green ink on my little picture on the front, or my little design on the front of my album. I did use the library green. For some reason, I couldn't bring myself to use the night sky on the green paper there. All right, so we're going to get started. And hopefully I have everything ready that I need to have ready. I love the punch, Sandy. It's my new go-to. You're going to be seeing a lot of it. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful punch. All right, so I've got my magnets handy here. We're just going to keep them up here. I know I won't have enough. So let's get started. And we are going to start with our covers. So I'll give you some chipboard measurements. Our spine. Now there might be a few things that I'm just going to tack down temporarily, just because I got to put pattern paper on the sheet, and I really haven't decided what the pattern paper is going to be. And yeah, all right. So we need to have 2 chipboard pieces that measure 5.5 by 7. That's our front and back cover. And then we have a piece that measures 2 3/4. No. We need to cut this. I have a wrong cut here. It's right on my cutting guide, but I got carried away when I was cutting my things this morning. So we're going to cut this down. So this needs to be 1 3/4, and I have it at 2 3/4. But my cutting guide's right, so that's a good thing. Now, I am going to use my older cutter because I have blades that are dedicated to chipboard, and I'm not ruining the new blade in my new cutter on my oops. So this needs to be 1 3/4, not 2 3/4. So we're going to cut it with my cutter. And this is what I do for all my small cuts, is I have a blade that is just dedicated to chipboard, and I run it through several times on one side, and then I flip it over and I run it through. Let's see what it does when it's going through the this does not look right. Oh yeah, except I made that cut a little off, so let's 1 3/4. It'll be fine. There you go. Looking at what I did there. There we go. It was right. I was just cutting in the wrong place on the sticker side, and it won't affect anything. It'll hold up. So now that we've got it cut right, it's 1 3/4 by 7, as the cutting guide says. All right, so we're going to start with the spine. We're going to cover it first. And this spine piece measures 4 1/2. Oh, I was having quite the day when I was doing this. You know what? This is going to work. We're just going to have not quite as big a wings. We're going to be 1/4 inch short with our wings. So follow my cutting guide, not what I cut here. Hopefully that's the end of my oopses. But knowing me, there's always oopses. So, and like so. And I just want to change this blade back before I go to cut a piece of artisan and discover that I've got the wrong blade in there, and it's going to make a mess. Because I'm still getting used to reaching for my other cutter. And I have a spot for it on the edge of my desk, but I really don't want to, just got these in the wrong order, lose where my little cutter goes. So I have to come up with another idea. I might add an extension onto this little box thing that's beside. Hello, Miss Alice. Oh yeah, there's a good idea, Jennifer, is to use a craft knife. But you know what? Knowing me, I would cut myself. Hi, Bobby. And yes, Tina, I thought the doors were adorable too. Let's stay focused, Bonnie. You're reading comments instead of doing what you need to be doing. All right, there we go. All right, let's remove the backing from the score tape. I already burnished it. And yes, we did try to cut through in the wrong place. And I was going, that doesn't look right. And then I realized, so it's all good. I just put a little, I left a mark. All right, so so what I've done is this, I should explain this. This spacer is 1 inch, this is 1.5, okay? And we're going to lay down our cardstock on. Now, my one wing is going to be a little short, but that is okay. We will make it work. It's not going to be a huge problem because it's not a huge album that we're working with. And I wasn't going to cut another piece of paper. All right, so let's do some folding. So my one wing will be wider than the other wing. It's not the end of the world. I know those of you that know me well are going, seriously, she just said that. Yeah, every once in a while, eh? And I always start with my spine. Okay, and then what I like to do is on my spine piece, I always like to fold the wings back on themselves. And all that does for me is it just reminds, in my head I'm reminding the paper what it's going to be doing down the road. All right. And now I'm just burnishing right along the edge. I'm on the good side of that wing and I'm just burnishing right along the edge. So remember, this one wing is 1/4 inch shorter because my guide said to cut a piece that was 4 3/4 and I cut 4.5. We're not cutting a new one. All right, so we're going to cut out my wonky. So do as I say, not as I did. So we're cutting out the little rectangles and we're just going up to where those two lines intersect. And 2. Just give me 1 second. All right, back here. Sorry about that. There we go. Cut out those corners. Hello, Miss Fauna. So we want to do some miter. No, we're not going to miter yet. I want to re-burnish. And then we're going to add some score tape to the wings. Hello, Miss Tammy. I will take care of that right after my live. And I need my little well, thank you. You missed the walkthrough. You'll have to go back and check it out. It's pretty cute, if I do say so myself. And like I say, those of you that know me know I'm not a really big cutesy kind of person. Yeah, I like it, but you know, it's not always my go-to. And why did you decide? All right, for some reason my phone decided to kick me out of the YouTube channel. On that note, remember, If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please make sure to go over and subscribe. It's All Things Paper by Bonnie. I'd appreciate it. And remember to go and like the video, because that helps too. And we just need a little bit more score tape. I'm going to use some of this. Yes, I like to do it edge to edge. That's just me. Other people probably use glue. I just haven't been able to bring myself to using glue yet. All right. All right, so now we're going to do some mitering. Getting a big mess already. Doesn't take me long. Okay, so when we miter, we're going to miter the two tabs at the top and the bottom of the spine. I just tuck my scissors up against my chipboard and then I pivot them and I miter. And I do exactly the same thing on all four sides of the 1-inch tabs. And remember, because I cut this 1/4 of an inch shorter, it looks a little wonky, but it'll still work. So now we're going to go and we want to miter those wings. We're doing exactly the same thing, only I like to give it a little bit sharper miter. So now you're just going to pretend that this other side looks just like this. Funny how that 1/4 of an inch makes all the difference. There we go. I'm just going to get all this out of our way. And get the glue handy here. I haven't used this glue today, so we'll have a little. And we're going to put glue on the 1-inch tab. And remember, we always run a bead of glue down along the side of the chipboard. So right here along the edge of the chipboard on the cardstock, we like to run there we go. And now we're going to rotate and repeat. Run the glue right along the edge of the chipboard on the cardstock. Get good coverage on the rest of the 1-inch tab. There we go. All right. So again, we're just going to remind this. We're going to set this aside and we're going to come back to it, okay? So let's take our 2 pieces of cardstock that are going to be for the front and back cover. They measure 7.5 by 9. So 7.5 by 9. We'll just get rid of that sticker. We'll lay one down. And we're going to get out our 1-inch. Push it right up into the left-hand corner of your scoreboard. Like so. I've already put my adhesive on the back of my chipboard. You could use glue if you wanted to. I just prefer to use the dry adhesive. I'm just folding over some of my overhang. Do this edge, and then I'm butting my piece of chipboard right up to my spacers. It gives us a perfect. We're going to do the other one while we're doing this. So butt your cardstock up to the left-hand corner, top left-hand corner of your scoreboard. Remove the backing from your chipboard. do the same thing basically this time too. There we go. We'll give these two a good burnish. I don't know why my phone is kicking me out of YouTube. Never. That's not the one that usually I have to wake up. It's usually my iPad that's on the Facebook. Who knows? It's technology. There are gremlins out there today. So, all right. So now let's fold over. What we're doing right now is we're going to fold that 1-inch tab over our chipboard. And I always work with the two top and bottom first, or what's going to be the top and bottom of the album. And then I always do the sides. Doesn't matter which way you do it. That's just what I like to do. Who knows? Could be Apple technology at work. All right, so now we want to cut out the little squares that we've created by folding over our 1-inch tabs. And again, all we do is we cut up right to where those two lines intersect. And we should use, sometimes it just wants to fall out, and sometimes you got to give it a little tug. Or sometimes you have to just give it another little snip. Okay. And last one. There's the 4. We'll work on one at a time here. So we're not. So anybody got any plans for the weekend? So I'm folding over my 1-inch tab, butting my scissors up to the chipboard, and I'm just pivoting just slightly to miter. And I'm going to repeat that on the other side. And then I'm going to turn it. Do it to the and again. We had a great time in Orlando at the retreat. It was an amazing time being with fellow crafters. It was hot, but it was an amazing time. All right, so let's just again remind all this. Oh, I missed one. Just give it another more. All right, so we're going to repeat just like we did on the spine. We run a bead of our glitter glue right along the edge of the chipboard on the cardstock. And wipe up my glue that I just created the mess with. No wonder I have to always clean my scoreboard. I'm going to fold it up and pull it down onto the chipboard and give it a good burnish. Marguerite, yes, we're not going there. Okay, done. And then we're going to turn. Up. and pull it down. And burnish it really well. And rotate. Now we're doing the two long sides. So I always do the two short sides first, and then I do the two long sides. And I would suggest that it doesn't really matter which way you do it. It just depends on the look you like. But I would always do the same top and bottom or left and right side together. Like I wouldn't work my way around the chipboard because that's going to look a little wonky. Okay. Last side. And burnish. And there is one of the covers all covered and ready to be assembled. Yes, it was an interesting time. Yes, Kelly. So we're going to fold. So we're just going to rinse and repeat on the second piece of chipboard that we covered. I always do my top and bottom first. And then I do sides. And the other way. And then again, we're going to cut out our four corners. That's exactly how I like them to fall out. You just touch them and they release. A little bit more. And we're down to two left. And the last one, with black paper, it's a little hard to see. That's why I kind of have to angle it so I can see. I have all my lights on today, so this is as good as the light gets in this room. All right, so let's miter. So again, doesn't matter where you start. I'm folding over my 1-inch tab, taking my scissors, butting them up to the edge of the chipboard, the wrap chipboard, and I'm mitering the cardstock. Just a slight miter. And we do that so we don't have any overhang. That's the point of that. Because if we didn't do it, we run the risk of course, these two don't. You won't be able to see it, but it's just hanging over just a little bit. And I don't like that look. I like this look. It just looks neat and tidy. But again, it's preference, right? So we'll just keep mitering all four sides. Just got to check to see which one we still have to do. Pick up all my bits and pieces. All right. And that's what you should end up with after you've mitered. Run our bead of glue along the edge of the chipboard on the cardstock. I'm making a big mess on my scoreboard, but we have this. fold. And burnish. And rotate to the other end. So this is the top and the bottom I started with. And burnish. So I folded over that 1-inch tab and I'm burnishing it really well. And the 2 long sides. And fold. So. And I'm going to have to go get a piece of pattern paper to lay down for under my spine. So I'm just going to step around to the other side. I forgot that. And I always like to have a piece of pattern paper underneath my hinge mechanism before I put that down. There we go. And that is that. And that is that. Give me 1 second to go and get it. I'm going to use this. Sorry for the rattling. All right, got what I needed. All right, so there's our front and back cover. Here's our spine. Now we're going to put the cover together. And it's just like we always do our covers, or if you're new, I'll try and walk you through it so you'll know what's going on. So I'm taking either the front cover or the back cover, and I am pushing it. Nope, I'm taking my spine. And we're going to start with the oops side first. And then I always like to dry fit. So there's my spine, and I have it laying good side up because that is the side that we put the adhesive on. And then I'm taking either my front cover or my back cover, and I always just take it, slide it to the edge of the spine, and let it drop on down. I'm just making sure that it's nice and straight, and I would be very happy with that, and that they're all the same length because I have cut them off. You know, it's like 1/8 of an inch, but it really bugs me. All right, so let's do this for sure this time. And you can feel it dropping down. And that is the most important step, is figure out a plan or get whatever you decide to do when you're making this kind of cover, this lay flat cover, is how to get it that it's close enough to the edge of the spine piece, but it's not hanging over. So we're going to do the same thing on this other side, and then we will give it a good burnish. So again, I just have my spine chipboard other cover that's not adhered yet, and I just slide it until I feel it fall into place. And that's how you get your cover. It's that simple. And the more you make of them, honestly, the better you get at it. And just burnish well. And when you lay the spine reinforcement piece on next, as I say to everybody, you've got to burnish really, really well right in here on either side of the spine so that you get good contact. Hello, Diane. So nice you could join us today. All right, so there's our cover. And now the next piece we need is we need our spine reinforcement piece that measures 6 3/4 by 6 7/8. And I deliberately 6 3/4 by 6 7/8. Yeah, let's get rid of. I put an arrow. I was in a hurry this morning when I was cutting, so that's my excuse today. Cut is right, the arrow was wrong. So with the 6 7/8, no, the 6 3/4 going left to right, and the 6 7/8 going top to bottom. Okay, so this is 6 7/8. So the height of it is 6 7/8. The width of it is 6 3/4. And I always like to dry fit. I've added my adhesive to the back. Okay, now we're going to remove the adhesive. And we just got to tuck over anything, any of the adhesive that might be hanging over the edge of the cardstock. All right. And I'm just going to move it just a little bit so I can see. If my head gets into the shot, I will apologize now. And I'm centering it top to bottom. So I've got like 1/8 of an inch at the top and the bottom. Side to side. And when I'm happy, I will lay it down. And then I like to burnish it while it's flat. And I'll take my bigger burnishing tool. All right, and now I use several different burnishing tools when I'm doing this. So I want to form it back into the book shape because right now it's pretty rigid. I'm taking my bone folder. I don't want to poke through with this tip. And I just start scoring it between the front cover or the cover and the spine. And then I turn it around. And I take my time doing this. Because as I always say, the more we do this, the better our book is going to look. I'm going to turn it to the other side and repeat. Turn. And I really work it. Now I know my cardstock is artisan. And so I'm not too worried about how much pressure I'm putting. The only thing I want to make sure that I don't do is that I don't go through the cardstock with the tip of any of my bone folders. So I'm using the pencil right now because I find that that's a good one too. Not so sure if I want to. Oh yeah, that'll work. All right, and there is your cover. Neat, tidy, and it's all done. And I went through all that talking at the beginning. We did the walk through the book, and we've got the cover made in an hour. We're only an hour into this, so that's darn good. Okay, so we're going to set this aside, and we're going to move on. And I need to cut a piece of this. because I'm going to use this to lay down on my spine before I put my hinge on it. So it's just a collection I have in my stash. And I always cut my pattern paper that I'm going to put underneath my spine the same width as the spine is itself. And it's 1 3/4, so I'm cutting this pattern paper at 1 3/4. Voila. Well, and now we need to do another cut at 6 7/8. Yeah, I can do that on here too. 6 7/8 is kind of big for my table. Usually I have this sitting over on the other side. It'll work here. Okay. And there is 6 7/8. And then let's get this out of our way. There we go. And we're going to want to add a little bit of ink to it. I was using Lost Old Faithful for a second, and I was going, where's my sepia? Like I say, it's my go-to. Just like it. It's just soft and kind of gives, it's what I like. We all have those. Hello, Julianne. There we go. So that's inked. And that should be all the inking we're going to do, because everything else I'm going to put in here, we're going to put down with that I need to put pattern paper under it. I'm going to use my repositionable. Okay. And I just make sure that I'm not going to impede the folding of the book, or it's not hanging over the top and the bottom. And voila. There is our piece of pattern paper that's going to go under the hinge. And I just like it because it just kind of finishes it off. It's a me thing. All right, now, of course, those of you that follow me know that I love my 5/8 of an inch gusset. And I just want to talk about one thing. So we're going to do our scoring. Now, first I'm going to give you some measurements of what this is. So it's 4 1/4 by 6 1/2, because we're making only 3 hinges. And on the 4 1/4 inch side, we are going to score at 1/2, 1, 1 5/8, 2 1/8, 2 5/8, 3 1/4, no, 3 1/4, I should say, and 3 3/4. Now, I am going to take this over to my big cutter because I want to take about a hair, and I am talking a hair. We're going to take a hair off of this side of this paper and this side of this paper. And you're saying, well, why didn't you just do that before you started to score? I do it after I score my hinges because I want these 2 hinges, when they're made, not to catch on the base of the spine. Okay, so I'm just going to go literally take a hair off, and I'm going to do it on the big cutter because I just feel more comfortable using the big cutter than the small cutter. So I will be right back. And I'll bring back the little pieces with me. So that's all I took off of each side. It's just a hair. And when you make the hinge, because that's what we're going to start doing now, when you have your hinges made, and they're in your album. So let's just say this was already in the album. When the page folds, in this case, to the left, it's not going to catch. It won't be overhanging the base of the hinge mechanism. Hopefully that makes sense. And now we're going to do number 2. And I'm going to stand it up. There's 2. And we want to do the last one. And I always like to fold my paper over with the small side away from me. If that makes sense. I just find I get a straighter fold when I'm scoring or burnishing on the larger piece of the paper than on the smaller piece of the paper. Okay, and there's your hinges, all 3 of them. And so let's adhere them. So I only need to put glue on one side of my hinge. And give it a good burnish. And stand it up. And do the middle hinge. And burnish. And I always say the more you burnish your hinge mechanism, the straighter and the truer your hinge is going to be. Burnish. And if you notice, I try to always burnish on the bigger side of the paper. And then I like to fold my hinges so they get used to the fact that these hinges are what turn the pages. And I fold them one way, and then I fold them the other way. And then I stand them up. And then I always like to take it, butt it up into that left-hand corner of my scoreboard, and just make sure that my mechanism is reasonably straight. That's an important thing for me, because I always say if my hinge is crooked, probably my pages are going to end up crooked. So we're going to bring our book back in. I won't need that burnishing tool anymore. Might still need that. And we are going to dry fit this to start with. And I always fold the 2 outer hinges in on themselves. And that looks like it would be good. And now I turned it over. Add the adhesive to the back of the hinge. So I'm technically putting the adhesive on the gusset, on the back side of the gusset. Then we are going to center top to bottom. And when you do that, you move it. That's not a good thing. It's not straight yet, but that's why we're using the glue. And I like using the glue for this because it just gives you a second or so to make sure you're going to be happy. And then I like to burnish the gussets. Stand them up. And voila, we now have our hinges in our project. And we're just moving along. They're very quiet today, Julianne. There's not a lot of talking going on. I think they're focused. All right, so now we're going to talk about our base pages. So we have 3 base pages in the book, and they measure 6.5 by 10. And I wanted to address something. So when I was at the last retreat, the conversation came up about terminology. And so when I write in my tutorial, in my cutting guide, with the 10-inch side along the top of the scoreboard, this is what I mean. So I have my 10-inch side along the top of my scoreboard, and I want to score at 5. So I do that on all 3 base pages. So I'm going to try and remember to do that a little bit more in tutorials, because yes, some of us that have done this for a long time, we know exactly what the terminology means. But somebody that's just starting out, and I can remember those days, some of this terminology can be a little foreign because it's not something we're used to hearing. So I'm burnishing all 3 base pages. So I'm going to try to be more mindful about mentioning as we're creating what exactly it is we're doing. All right, so we're going to take our first base page, and I always start with the back of the book, working towards the front of the book. So this is your time. If you like one side of your book better than the other, this is when you can determine front and back if you want to. I'm happy with both today. So I'm just going to get rolling here and add my first page. Now, what I look for is I look to see that I'm nice and straight here at the outer edge, and I'm got about equal distance at the top and the bottom. And I always lay my hinge down to make sure that it's not catching on anything. Then holding everything in place, I run some glue, and I always like 2 lines on the upper 2/3 of the hinge. So I'm just going to fold it back so you can see. So there's the glue on the hinge. And then all I do is I lay it down on the base page. Like so. And I give it a good burnish. And I want to turn it, because you want to catch any glue. So burnish it well. All right. Now, I always run a bead, and I need to get my white paper. Just helps me see. Going to run a bead of glitter of the glue along the very bottom of the base page. I didn't make mats for this album, but you could certainly make mats to put in this pocket that you're creating right now. And again, I run my glue at the top of the hinge, so the part that's closest to the base page. And then I try to stay about 1/3 of the way. I don't want to get right down along the edge of the hinge, because that's when I make a mess and I have glue everywhere. So just fold it over. Use my hand to start with, and take my wipe, and then I burnish like so. And that's how quick we have page 1 in our project. Now let's move on to number 2. And now we've got something to line it up to. So I have one base page already adhered. And I'm just gonna just make sure that we're good. Looks good to me. Move it a little closer just to see. Okay. And again, I just want to make sure, yeah. So again, we're putting the adhesive on the hinge. Some people like to put it on the base page. I always have put it on the hinge, so, you know, it's like teaching the dog a new trick. I just can't. And burnish. I'm just going to move that white piece of paper up one. And we're going to burnish along the, or add our adhesive along the bottom of the base page. And then we're going to put adhesive on the hinge itself. And fold over and burnish. And I always say the more time you take doing this, the happier you're going to be with your final product. Or the more time you take on the cover and the base pages, the longer it's going to last, because this is what everything else gets attached to. All right, sip of water. And let's get our third and last page. And I'm always checking to make sure I'm nice and straight along the outer edge of the base page. And then I always fold my hinge over. And what I'm listening for, did I hear it catch on the base page at all? And I did not. So we're going to add adhesive, just like we did to the other two, keeping it to the top 2/3 of the hinge. Fold it over and adhere. Give it a good burnish. Go, just check, looking good. All right, and now put our white paper underneath. Get that out of our way. My exclusive 3.5-inch Tim Holtz ruler. And we add the adhesive on the hinge, keeping it to the top 2/3 of the hinge. Like so. And fold and fold. And there are all 3 pages in your album. All right, so let's get started with our construction. So on the front of page 1, so there's the album again, for those of you that came in late. On the front of page 1, this is where we have this barn door mechanism and the flip that goes up for this pop-up element. So, and there's a magnet that holds this. The magnet is right here and right here that holds the flap shut. All right, so let's get the flap and get all these bits and pieces. And it looks like a lot of pieces, but really it will go pretty quick. I'm going to set that up there because that's for the barn doors. This is for the pop-up mechanism. So let's start with what we need first. So what we need first is we need the flap that is going to be measuring 5 by 7. And with a 7-inch side along the top of the scoreboard, you are going to score at 1/2. So we're going to add this to our base page first. So I'm going to burnish that 1/2-inch tab. And we're going to miter the 1/2-inch tab. do it in the screen. I was going to put the bits in my little bin, but then you can't see what I'm doing when I'm doing it over the bin. So again, you just miter so that you don't have anything hanging over the edge. That's the point of the miter. We'll get our base page, our book back in. And then I'm just going to set those guys up there. Now this is the correct orientation for the book. There's your little pocket at the top of the page. So I'm turning the book completely around. So now the top of the book is facing me. So my pocket is here. I'm going to dry fit it just to make sure that I'm going to be okay with everything. And I am. Now, I did not. I was about to round the corners, and I'm glad I looked. I did not round the corners on this base page because of the barn doors. Okay, so let's add adhesive to the 1/2-inch tab. So, and I am going to bring in my white piece of paper so I have a contrast. And I try to keep things to the outside edge all the time. So in this case, it would be this edge over here. Because there's a little bit of bulk in this particular page. And we just want to make sure that we keep it away, as far away from the hinge as we possibly can. All right. Now, we're going to do the barn doors next. No, actually, we're going to do the pop-up mechanism on the inside. So before you lay down this pop-up mechanism, you do want to have your pattern paper on here. I'm not today because I'm not going to waste the time cutting that other piece of pattern paper for a different project because it doesn't make sense. So the pop-up mechanism consists of a piece of paper that measures 5, and I did a 1/16 of an inch or just a hair less because I don't want any overhang. So it's 5 inches by 10, and with the 10 inches across the top of the scoreboard, I scored at 1, 5, and 9. I want these 1-inch tabs. Now, I'm going to fold on all those score lines and burnish them. This score line I'm going to bring, so I folded it in half is what I've done. So this is what we've got. So this is the good sides. And then those 1-inch tabs, I'm folding them up onto. And then the same on the other side. Now I thought about folding these underneath, but I really like the idea of having that little tuck spot. So when it's created, that little tuck spot where you can tuck the picture in underneath. So let's bring this back. All right. And so here's what we're going to do. Here is our mechanism, our pop-up mechanism. Looks like a tent almost, doesn't it? And we folded it. So with the folded edge along the top, I got to turn this all the way around so I can work. So this is that flap we just put on. I am taking this and I am laying that folded edge of this piece right up just a little bit down, like a hair. Like I'm not butting it right to the edge of the flap. I'm leaving it down just a touch. Like, and I do mean a touch. And I'm looking to make sure that everything looks good. It does. So now I'm going to add some adhesive to one of these 1-inch tabs. Now, okay, we got our adhesive. We're going to fold it kind of back in underneath. And again, I'm just going to kind of keep that end up. I'm laying it back down with a folded edge near the top of the flap. Just like I mean a hair. And then I just kind of lay it down like so. I'm going to open and I'm going to burnish. And I'm using, oh well, I'm adhering this right here. right now. I meant to use repositionable. Oh well, it is what it is. It's a challenge. So remember, you don't want to be adhering this little tent piece down until you've got your pattern paper on. I can still do this because I'm going to put repositionable adhesive on this side so that when I stand this up, when I fold it all over, it's all going to make sense. That I can still open it up and I can put pattern paper here. Okay. The only difference on this one is I'm not going to have the flow of pattern paper. I could lift it off, but I'm not going to. So I'm just using some repositionable. So just remember, when you're doing this, put your pattern paper down. If you didn't put your pattern paper down and you adhere one side of it, it's still okay because we could still add the pattern paper and make it look perfectly fine and everybody will think it's a gorgeous project. So I'm just laying this down. I'm just going to give it a good little quick burnish. I'm just going to burnish this so it doesn't pop off or anything. And there is your mechanism. Isn't that easy? Isn't it slick? It's the easiest thing in the world. And then we're going to take two large magnets, so a positive and a negative. And I didn't invent this. I saw it someplace and I went, "Oh, what a cool idea." I just did a little of adaptation to what I wanted it to do. All right, so I am going to put my one magnet here. And then I've laid it down and I put the other magnet on top of that pop-up mechanism. And I know it's hard to see. If I do that, then you can see it. And then all I'm doing is I'm laying this back down on top of it. And that's just to hold everything in place so that when we turn the page, nothing sticks. And when you open it up, look at that. Love it. See, that's why I put a little circle with a line through it to remind me I need a magnet. Okay, so there's the front. And then if you're going to make the barn doors, and I'm just going to put these down with repositionable adhesive. So you need the two smaller pieces. So you need two that measure 3 by 4.5. And on with a 3-inch side along the top of the scoreboard, you're scoring at 1/2. And you create 2 of these. And then, oh yes, these little pieces of paper. You will need these pieces of paper. I'm not going to adhere these right now because I don't have the pattern paper. You're going to want to adhere one to either side of the pop-up element, and you're only going to add the adhesive to the very edge of it, and then cover it with pattern paper. I'm going to put the one on the top because that one's already been adhered permanently. So basically, it's just to give you that small little tuck spot. I know it adds a little bit of bulk, but I wanted to have my little tuck spot so that I could, you know, tuck my picture in underneath. And this is how I am able to do that. Okay, so that's all that's for. This one is going to go on the other side. So I'm, again, just going to use a little bit of repositionable, just because this one needs to still have pattern paper under it. And voila, there's your tuck spot too. Okay, so close that back up. We did the doors, which were 3 by 4, and we scored 1/2 inch on the 3-inch side. Then the little, for the slider piece, we need these 2 little holders, I guess is what I'm going to call them. So we need 2 pieces that are 1 by 2, and on the 2 with the 2-inch side along the top of the scoreboard, you're going to score at 1/2. You're going to rotate to the other side and score at 1/2. So when I say in my cutting instructions to score at 1/2, and then I say rotate, I believe I say, let me find my wording. I say 1/2 at both ends. This is what I'm talking about. Turn it completely around so that you have a true 1/2. So we're going to fold back on those score lines. And this one too. So we did 2 of those. And then our little slider mechanism, it's 7/8 of an inch by 4. And I did round these corners. And I just used the smaller one because it's a smaller piece of paper. Now, you could round these corners on the barn doors. I chose not to, so let's burnish on those score lines. And burnish this one. And then let's burnish these little guys so that they're going to lay flat. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to use repositionable tape for this. And I am going to start on the outside of the page, so where the page turns. And we're going to miter the 1/2-inch tab. And start making a mess here. Both of them at the same time. All right, so let's put one down first. And again, I'm just using the repositionable. And I'm going to take that white piece of paper again, lay it onto the base page so I can see the edge of it. And one door. And then let's do the other one. I use repositionable tape a lot. When I'm creating, I always use repositionable tape so I know exactly where things are and I can test out to see if I have clearance. Now, like in true fashion of a barn, no, it's going to be just fine. Okay. So there's our barn doors. They look amazing. Now we want to add these little guys. So you want to make sure that your mechanism that's going to hold your barn doors closed, and you don't want to put these on until you have your pattern paper down, okay? They're going to go something like this. So again, this is why we're using the repositionable, because you want to have all the paper on that you need to have on before. So I'm just going to add and that way when I'm working on something, I don't lose my pieces. Sometimes it's good to have, and I'm just eyeballing this because I'll be moving it once I decide on the pattern paper. And voila, there is your mechanism that holds your barn doors closed, just like in our original. So there's the mechanism. It just slides out and it slides back in like so. Isn't that slick? I thought so. All right, so there's the front of page 1 done. That is the hardest page in this whole book. That's why we did it first. All right, so on the front of page 2, or the back of page 1 and the front of page 2, we have these 2 flip out pages. like so. So let's create them, and that's where we put the small magnets. So let's just get rid of the paper clips. We needed 2 pieces of paper, cardstock, I should say. What a mess I create. That measure 5.5 by 6.5. And with a 5.5 inch side along the top of the scoreboard, you are going to score each of these at 1/2. Thanks, Tiffany. I thought it was one of my cooler ideas, I think. I really needed barn doors. All right, and I just want to open the book and just check something out. I did. We're going to round these corners too, and I'm using the 7mm to round these corners. Do all that work first, and then now we are going to bring the book back in, because what I want to do is I just want to kind of do a dry fit to make sure that I'm good. I don't need to cut anything, a little sliver off any place. Because remember, everybody's project's going to be just slightly different, because it just depends on your cutter and where you cut. All right, so let's miter the 1/2 inch tabs. And then we're going to burnish them again. And we're going to bring that white piece of paper back in. And I'm going to add adhesive. And just make sure top to bottom. Give it a good burnish. And then we're going to do the other side. So we're actually creating both of these at the same time. Like I say, and then it's your decorating that just brings it up a notch on these 2 pages. And if you wanted to put a pocket on one of the outside of these flaps or on the inside, you could do that. But I figured with the bulk that we had on page 1, keeping back of page 1 and the front of page 2 a little thinner, if you want to say, was a better idea. Now, like I said to you, I have a whole bunch of these smaller magnets. And so, yes, it might be considered a little overkill, but I do like the way that page lays with the 2 sets of small magnets at the top and the bottom of the page. Okay. It doesn't matter which side we start with. And we need 4 sets. I said so you need 2 sets for each page. And it doesn't matter whether you start with the top or the bottom. I would just tend to keep so I like to measure with my thumb, kind of someplace like that. Like there. And then we're going to take the backing. And the backing. lay it down. Now, I also like to add a little bit of dry adhesive over my magnets, just as an extra. But you might have another idea that's just as good. So there's one done. And then let's get the other set. So you need, technically, I guess we need 4 sets, but I said 2. So I would hope that no one would use the cutting guide as a standalone product. I certainly wouldn't. All right, so now here's a little trick. I want to know which side my magnets attract to. Now hopefully I can explain this without the math that I need, or the terminology I probably need. Because my X's, or my positives, are attracting to these magnets on the other side, I want to make sure that my negatives are what adhere to this side of my page, so that these 2 pages will resist each other, not attract to each other. So I hope that makes sense how I just said that. Okay. So we are going to take this side, and we are going to approximately a thumb and a thumb. I do a lot of things measuring with my digits. So, and this time we're going to be smart, and we're going to do the dry adhesive on top. And if this works, what should happen is these 2 pages should not attract to each other. They should repel each other. I believe that's the terminology that I should be using. And this will be halfway, almost halfway through. And fold. And lift. Feels like I'm doing exercises. And there we go. Now here's the test. They should repel, not attract. And they do. So it's, you got to think about it a little bit, but if you always keep your magnets resisting to the next page, you won't have that where they're stuck together like this when you open the book. So that's another little tip that I try to share almost every time I use magnets. Okay, so now we're to the back of page 2. And on the back of page 2, we have a flap with no magnet and a pocket for some photo mats. And we use that very cool punch that makes the slots. All right, so what we need for that is we need this. We need the flap, we need the pocket. Start the measurements for the flap. So this is back at page 2. And the flap measures 5 1/4 by 6 1/4. And on the 5 1/4 each side, we're scoring at 1/2. Now, the pocket is a piece of cardstock that measures 3 1/2 by 7 1/4. With the 3 1/2 inch side along the top of your scoreboard, you go and score at 1/2. I just realized, bring it down just a touch. 1/2. Then you're going to rotate it to the 7 1/4 inch side, score at 1/2. And that's where I always say, score at 1/2 on both ends. And I say something along the lines of rotate and score at 1/2 on both ends. That's exactly what I say. So that's what you're doing. always rotate, always score from this left-hand side of your scoreboard, just in case your paper is out. So you always have a 1/2 inch tab. Let's fold on all those score lines. And we're going to do the flap at the same time. Now, I'm not going to miter my 1/2 inch tabs on this flap because it doesn't go from the top to the bottom of the page. I am centering it on the left-hand side of the page. And I know it's hard to see, maybe if I bring in the original. It just 1/8 of an inch smaller on either edge, this flap. All right, so let's turn my book to the side. So this is where the book turns, or the page turns. Get my little white piece of paper back in here. And I'm going to center this top to bottom. I'm going to round my, no, I'm not going to round my corners. No rounding corners on this particular piece of this flap. Add some adhesive. And I'm centering it top to bottom. There we go. I don't want it overhanging, but I don't want it to. There we go. Good burnish. I'm going to put the book in its correct orientation for a second. There we go. And then we're going to do the pocket. So when we're doing our pocket, remember we burnished it already. And if you follow me, you know I like to say we're going to cut through those X's, or the X, where the 2 lines intersect. Just cut through the center of the X. Don't cut into the pocket itself, or you'll have a little hole in your pocket. But that might be the look you're going for, so that would make it okay. And then we're going to miter the top of the pocket. Like so. I'm going to go back and give it a good burnish. You know what? We'll have this book made in less than 2 hours. Because remember, I did all that talking at the beginning. All right, so now this is the correct orientation for our book. There's that flap. I'm laying in my white piece of paper, and now I'm rotating it this direction because the pocket goes on this side of the flap. So the pocket is technically going on the right-hand side of the flap, but I have rotated my book to the side so that I can see what I'm doing. And here we go. I only add adhesive to the bottom edge of the pocket. And I always hold it up and make sure nothing's hanging over the edge of the flap. Now we're going to give this a good burnish. And then again, you guys know if you watch me, I do like to add some tape over that 1/2 inch tab so that my photo mats will slide in nicely. And then I add adhesive to the 1/2 inch tabs that are on either side of the pocket. 1 and 2, and I fold it up just like that. And there's your pocket. Without the glue on it, of course. All right. We're going to rotate it back to its correct orientation. And I'm going to set the book up here because now I've got 2 photo mats. So I have 2 photo mats that measure 4 by 6. And I'm going to take my cool new tool. So I slide it right in. And it gets me this very, very cool slot. So you can change your pictures if you want it to. Here's what you could do. Just let me finish this on both of them. And one more. Dress My Craft. I love this tool. And it also has this little compartment back here, which I do not have very strong fingers. So I have difficulty. It's probably a trick to it, and I just don't know the trick. But they will fall out the front. And you know what you could do with that? If you wanted to, you could save all this and put it in your shaker bag for shaker elements. I know, Tiffany, I've had this one for a little bit and I just hadn't used it yet. And I got, okay, I got to show them how to use these tools that we're getting in the store because they are cool and they just kind of take a project to the next level. How easy was this? Like you now just slide your photos into your photo mats. And if you want to round the corners, it's not going to interfere. And then, like I say, you could just let me get them both done. You know, it's like chewing gum and walking. I can't do that either. Oops, I missed that one there. Probably wrecked that one now. Oh well, I might have to redo this one. There we go. Got it fixed. It would be an operator error, not the equipment. Now I saw here. Nope, I'm good. All right. So here's what you could do. So you have your photo mats in your pocket with your pictures on them. So you get tired of these pictures. Up in here, you could have spare pictures, and then you could swap them out. Isn't that a cool idea? I thought it does. I like it. Isn't it amazing? I love it. So do I. I've always liked to round my corners on things because I just think it's a softer look. And when I tried it with this, I went, oh my, for sure, we're rounding the corners. So that is the back of page 2 done. And now we're moving on to the front of page 3. And again, easy peasy, a flap to the right and a flap to the left. Okay. You know me, I'm kind of a matchy one. I like my stuff to be matched. So you need 2 pieces of cardstock. Set this over here. Yes, Sandy, that's a good way to say it too. It just looks finished. 5.5. You need 2 pieces of paper that are 5.5 by 9. And with the 9-inch side along the top of your scoreboard, you are going to score at 1/2 on both of them and 4 3/4 on both of them. And then you're going to take them over to your big cutter and you're going to just cut a hair off of this side. So the side that doesn't have the 1/2-inch tab, you just want to cut a hair off so that it's not going to catch. It's more so this one. This here one doesn't catch as it's turning because you're adhering it right to the edge of the base page at the spine. So you can do it to both of them. Then you don't have to worry about which one you took that little hair off of, or you can do it to one. I will be right back because I got to go to the big cutter. And I am just taking a hair.
and I'll show you the little pieces.
That's what I removed. If my camera will. That's what I removed. Okay. All right, so let's fold on all those score lines. And let's do the second one. There we go. And I am going to miter the 1/2-inch tabs on both of them. You could miter just one side if you wanted to, but I always go, if I don't miter both of them, what will end up happening is I will glue it on the wrong side. Okay, that out of my way. So one of them, oh, and I'm going to round my corners too. So let's do that before we adhere it into the book. So we're going to round. And then ×2. And I'm using that 7mm one again. All right. Just burnish them again. And burnish. All right. So we are going to start with the one that's on the front of page 3, but that is closest to the hinge, or the gusset, I should say. And I'm just making sure that I am nice and straight out here at this outer edge. And I'm sort of keeping it back about 1/16 of an inch from the edge of the base page. Just so when this thing folds, the flap doesn't get in the way. So right up here to the top, just double checking. Yes, I should be happy. And I always like to turn your page, so nothing is getting in the way, and it's fine. Burnish it. And then we're going to do the second one. So there's your 1/2-inch tab. And I'm going to need my white piece of paper this time. Open this up for a second. And it's going at the bottom. And of course, you could put these wherever you'd like to put them. You could center them. You could matchy completely. Having them one off, like right again. Right in the middle of the page, having them both in the middle of the page. All right, so there we go. And I never understand sometimes how stuff ends up in a completely different part of my room. Like this baby wipe was sitting up by my computer. Why? I don't know. I guess at some point in time I had reached over there with it in my hand and had dropped it. Who knows? It is what it is. Alrighty. So my flap that's on the left-hand side is going to fold in first, and then my flap that's on the right-hand side is going to fold in second. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to put our magnet here, and we're using a set of large ones. I have one left here. So that's the end of that package, so we'll get rid of it. Now, I want to put it in the center of this flap. But first of all, I'm going to find out if I got any magnets on my other side that this is going to attract to. Way up there, we're going to be good. It doesn't matter if it's a positive or a negative. So I'm just going to lift the backing. And I'm putting it right in the middle, or basically in the middle. And then I'm going to take my second one, or the other half of it. I'm going to close this up. I'm going to put it here, move this flap out of the way, and I'm going to adhere the second half of this magnet to the base page. Like so. And then we're going to add some tape. 1 and 2, and we'll be on to the back of page 3. Voila. Love it. And we're going to turn the page, and we're on the back of page 3. And the back of page 3 just consists of 2 flaps. A flap that opens to the left and a flap that opens to the top. And here we go. Here's some measurements. And I promise at some point in time, I will put the cutting guide and the videos into the guides over on my channel, which is All Things Paper by Bonnie, or check my YouTube channel, All Things Paper by Bonnie. So the flap at the top of the page is 4 1/4 by 6 1/2. And on the with the 6 1/2 inch side at the top of the scoreboard, I scored at 1/2. And then the small flap that went on the left-hand side of that base page is a 4 by 4 1/2. And with the 4-inch long top, I also scored at 1/2. And we're going to burnish those score lines. And I did use a magnet to hold all this shut. Bring the book back in. It's upside down. So orientation. Now it's upside down. And this flap is going to sit in the middle of the base page. So there's no need to miter the 1/2 inch tabs, but I am going to round my corners on both the big flap and the small flap. Add our adhesive. And we're going to get this white piece of paper. I keep saying it's just because it's black on black, right? It's not because I have old eyes. And I'm centering it left to right. I'm happy with that. We're almost finished. We just have 2 pockets, and we will call this album done. Like, it's an easy project that you could do if you were going to a crop. Now, in my original, I had this down just slightly lower than the flap. So this flap that goes from top to on the top, and the flap that goes on the side, I have the flap that goes on the side just slightly lowered, just so we have a little bit of contrast when the pattern paper is on. But I don't need to miter these 2 because this 1/2 inch tab, because it doesn't go right to the bottom of the page. I'm leaving less than 1/4 inch. Maybe like a little bit more than 1/8 inch. 3/16 if we want to get right technical about it. Wherever you want to put it on the page is what I'm going to say. All right. And then on this page, I'm going to use a large set of magnets. Put these ones away. And get out a set of large magnets. I find I use large magnets more than I use small magnets. And that's why I have so many small magnets, because in my... Now, what we're looking for here is, okay, it's way over there, so we'll be fine. When when I first started scrapbooking, I always just used small magnets, and then I realized that really big magnets are the way to go. They stick. They're stronger. So I added that one. Now this is going to be the tricky part because, no, it's not. Not tricky at all. What was I thinking? And lay it over. And voila. There is the back of page 3 done. And of course you can add, hello, Michelle, how are you? Glad you could join us. We're almost done, so you'll have to go back and watch the replay. It's a warm day here. It's 27. Remember, I'm in Canada, so that's Celsius. It's a warm day here. And I'm doing this. All right, so the front and the inside, front and back inside covers, you're just putting 2 pockets. So they're exactly the same. Move the book. And you need 2 pockets that measure 3.5 by 6.5. And I think I said do like a 16th less. Yes, I did. So that they will clear. So they won't be in the way of the hinge or the turning of, yeah, the hinge. No, the spine. Get the right words. There's one. We're going to do them both at the same time. And miter them. Now remember, this video will be on my YouTube channel, All Things Paper by Bonnie. While you're watching it over there, if you haven't already subscribed, if you would, I would appreciate it. And there's all our mitering. Once you've mitered one pocket, you always know how to miter them all. Oh wow, that's hot, Sandy. No, we're not. 27 is not anywhere near 100. I would say 27 is probably high 70s, maybe low 80s. I'd have to do the conversion. You know, it's when that's what you're used to. You don't. I know that 105 degrees Fahrenheit is hot, but I can't tell you how hot when I'm comparing that to Celsius. All right, so we're just going to put the pocket on the inside of the back cover first. I'm making sure that I have it as far over to the edge of the album as possible, so when I close my book, the pocket is not going to be in the way of the book closing. Again, I start by just putting adhesive on the bottom half-inch tab. And I want to make sure that I'm not over. Hold the book up, because it is hard to see. I like to get that piece of white paper under it. Burnish. And then add the tape. Remember, this is just what I do. You don't need, like, it's what I do to make sure that my photo mats don't catch on the bottom. And by the time that tape is going to fall off, the photo mats will be used to sliding in and out. Burnish and burnish. Just was checking to make sure that I was not And these photo mats are actually a little bigger. They're 6 1/4 by 4 1/4. And again, you would use the slot punch. And I would punch. And then I will round these corners. I'm not going to do them all. So you just punch, round the corners, stick them in your pocket. And now we're going to go to the front. The pocket is ready. And we're just going to repeat what we did on the inside back cover. So we're doing this to the inside front cover. Like so. And some tape. We're almost done. And on the other 1/2 inch tab on both sides. Lift up and fold down. Burnish and burnish. And you could use your slot punch on these ones too. Stick them in the pocket. I'll go back and do that after when I'm not on camera. And there is your little album. And that's what we were recreating today, this album. So I'm so glad you could join me. I'm glad you stuck with me. And I will see you probably in a couple of weeks with another new project. I hope everybody has an amazing weekend and enjoy some sunshine. Thanks, everybody. Hope everybody has a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.